This week on Paint Every Day, we're starting our journey to create an epic graveyard diorama with some modular fences and a gate. Oh, and happy Halloween! Alright, so our main material for this build is going to be some XPS, otherwise known as insulation foam. This is really easy to cut if you have a sharp knife and you don't jerk it back and forth too much. As you can see, I'm just measuring the height of an average sized miniature to see how tall I should make my walls. It actually took me a pretty long time and a lot of foam to figure out how to cut this stuff, but once I did, it went pretty smoothly. Honestly, all I can say is just don't take the blade out, otherwise that'll chip the foam. It's better just to drag it back and forth without removing it. Once I've cut out all my pieces, I then start scoring them with an X-Acto knife and later a pencil to create some brick designs. As you can see, I first created a test piece and used that for the measurements for the rest of them. I'm also using my X-Acto knife to add some large cracks and chips to these stones to make them look a bit more weathered and worn. Now I'm using a tinfoil ball to add some pretty easy textures to these walls. So like I said before, I'm just using this mechanical pencil to emphasize some of the scores we made earlier. And I also repeated this process for the pillars. Next, I assembled all these separate pieces together with some hot glue. Next, I cut some small, thin pieces of foam to go on top of the pillars. And I just attached them with a very small amount of hot glue. A lot of images I saw of classic graveyard walls, I noticed that a lot of them had these round stone toppers on the ends of the pillars. Originally I was just going to do them flat, but I found that the perfect thing to create the stone spheres. I used to collect these discarded BBs in a local park, and they just happened to be the right size, so I just attached them with a bit of hot glue. Unfortunately, this was not an easy process. For the wrought iron fence, I'm just using some plastic cocktail sticks that I ordered off Amazon. Before I could put these into the walls, I needed to clean up the massive mold lines that were on these things. Next, I marked out the holes where the picks will go, and then I drilled them out with a clay sculpting tool. This actually worked really well, I'm surprised. Next, I just placed in these picks with some PVA glue. This actually worked pretty well, had a pretty strong bond, and had the added benefit of not melting the foam, which happened with some earlier test ones I did. I accidentally put too many holes in this one, but that's okay. I'm just gonna fill them in with some moss or grass tufts later on in the build. Now I'm just using some of the leftover sticks from the fence as the crossbeam, and I'm just attaching it with some super glue. I moved on to the gate. I just made these pillars out of the same foam with the same techniques as before, and now I'm going to put in some of those sticks we used before, but I'm not having a low wall on this one. Instead, I'm just going to have the gate be a kind of curved archway made completely out of wrought iron. The top part of the gate to have a curve in it, so I decided to bend the cocktail stick with heat or a lighter. This turned out to be a lot harder than I expected, so I made a curved piece of XPS foam as kind of a mold or something to bend the plastic stick along, so I didn't have to just estimate it with my hands. As you can see, it took a little bit of tweaking, and the final product turned out a little bit bent, but I think that actually kind of sells the wrought iron fence sort of look, so I actually think that it was a happy little accident, as Bob Ross would say. And I just attached this bar in the same, pretty much the same way that I did the rest of the sticks. And like the fences, I just used the cocktail sticks in the same way, except this time I made them kind of follow the curve of the gate and have varying lengths. I just super glued those in, and that was it for the building. Before moving on to painting, I just cut out some small pieces of chipboard to make some sort of small bases to make these more stable and more uniform when on the tabletop. As a base coat, I went with the Mod Podge and black paint mixture from Black Magic Craft. This should seal in the foam really well and give it some more durability. Honestly, priming is one of my favorite parts about building terrain because it really ties in all the different colored and sort of ugly pieces of the model and turns them all into like one cohesive thing that just looks so cool and so satisfying. Next, I did a heavy dry brush or an overbrush of dark gray to leave the darkest spaces black, but also establish that these walls are mostly gray. If you've never painted stone before, it's super easy and actually quite fun. So if you're a beginner and you want something pretty easy to paint, I'd recommend painting some sort of stone work because it's literally just a lot of just dry brushing and some washes, and it's done and it looks really good. Next, I applied a lighter dry brush with a lighter gray. Next, I applied my homemade black wash. And after that was dry, I just did a light dry brushing of white. And then I repainted the fence pieces in a black. Now I wanted these to look like wrought iron, but I didn't want them just to be like matte black, just straight black. So I just did a really light dry brush of silver to add some sort of metallic looking shine to them. And after that, I'm just using this Army Painter dry rust effect paint. I'm just putting it kind of like randomly over the fences. Yeah, this paint works like super well. I really like it, and if you're painting rust, I would highly suggest you pick it up. It looks really realistic. Now I'm just filling in some of these mistakes I made in this particular wall section with just some Army Painter grass tufts. wanted to put some moss into the cracks on these stones to further weather them. So I mixed some of this fine turf from, I just got it at Michael's. It's really cheap, just a small bag. I mixed it with some PVA glue, and this way I could use a toothpick to put some of it on the walls and really get it into those cracks. Then I just applied the moss mixture I made with a toothpick, and I just kind of like randomly go around to different cracks or places that would build up vegetation and just kind of pushed it into there. And this seemed to work well, and the PVA glue really helped it stick, so it was really pretty convenient. Finally, to finish off this paint job, I just added a little bit of brown wash to the base of the fence posts to add a bit more like dirt or rust runoff and make it look a bit more weathered. Alright, that's the finished product and the end of this video. I really hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please consider liking and subscribing. It really helps me out. Make sure to check back here soon for more on this graveyard diorama. And in the meantime, do yourself a favor and paint every day.